My name is Andres, and we're going to make a thin crust pizza. One of my favorites, and Chef, you said it best. Thin crust means you can eat more pizza, right? If you make them thin, because they're thinner, so they have less dough, but just as good, just as crunchy. And our recipe is going to be today. I'm making the 72-hour dough one, so I can always just keep this dough recycling. And you can play around with water content all you'd like to. I mean, you can dial it up or down. We find like 70% hydration is awesome for this crust. Cracker thin crust. It's so good. And I've been really going to pump up these dough containers again because it's keeping it's container, right? So it contains all the ingredients, and I don't need to make a big mess on my countertops. My wife is appreciative of that when I'm in the house. In the studio, so I can make a mess again. But in any case, let's make this recipe, the dough, and then we'll get into making pizza too. If you've been following us long enough, you know you need to use a digital scale. We'll link to all this stuff too. Once I put my container on my scale, you can see what I'm doing here. You can see it here, right? I can weigh out my ingredients this way. And what I'm doing is I'm just gonna hit the, I'll move it this way so you can see I hit the tear button, it zeroes it out, so it thinks nothing's on top here. And what I'll do next is I'll just add my salt, and I'm gonna do 16 grams of salt. This is just a sea salt from Whole Foods. And now what I'll do is I'll whisk it around, okay? And I have 500 grams of, I have all-purpose flour here today. Tricking everybody out. It's organic, it's from Central Milling. My yeast is 1 gram, and I don't have a micro scale here, it's still packed away. That's probably a little heavy, it's probably 1.5, but it's a very small amount. That goes into my mixture. And now I'm gonna whisk that again as well. Again, very low skill level here, right? And now I'm gonna take water, I hit the tear button, it zeroes it out again. And I'm using this boxed water because I'm in a new studio, it's city water, it's not filtered yet. So until I get my filtration system in, I'm just buying some water. And I like this boxed water. And again, 350 grams, right? Once I get to 350, well, I hit 370, so I'm a little heavy. Ooh, don't tell the principal. Now I can just take it out of here, take my spatula, and just kind of mix it around. Real simple, and I do this for a minute or two. And then I'm just gonna, I typically can knead it for a couple of minutes, but because we're in class, I'm not gonna do that today. I'm just gonna kind of mix it around, keep my hands clean. This is like 80% done. And what I'll do is I'll just grab a spatula, just kind of knead it by hand. For the next, after class, I'll do that. Just for another minute, scrape the bowl clean. It'll be beautiful. It'll be ready to ferment. And what I'll do is I'll just take my cover, right? And here's what I love about this container. Everything's right inside of here. I'll take this and I'll just leave it on my countertop, right over here for the next 12 hours or until tomorrow, actually maybe even 24. I might come back in here tomorrow morning. Now I'm not living here, I'm in my studio. I'll come back and like I did this morning, and I'll stick this into the fridge until pizza night or until the day I'm gonna make pizza. And that day comes, like this morning, I just removed about 300 grams, 150 grams each, and I made dough balls. And I'll show you in my container here. I made these probably around 7:30 this morning. These are 150 gram dough balls. And what I love about them, I'm gonna show you in a second. Put this over here. You guys see this? 150 gram dough ball. It's been relaxing for probably, what time is it? 12 o'clock? It's like 4 or 5 hours. Oh, not that long. Yeah, maybe close, right, Chef? So you can see this 150 gram dough ball. I cover both sides with flour. And this is going to be a thin crust. So what I'm going to do is just stretch it out by hand or by rolling pin because it's thin crust. So I'm going to, at this time, I'm going to knock the air bubbles out of it. Unlike our typical pizza dough where we keep the bubbles in. Now I'm actually knocking the bubbles out because I want it cracker thin. I won't get them all out. If I want to use a rolling pin or something, I can. I don't have a rolling pin yet. So what I'll do, I don't drink wine anymore, but I use it as rolling pins. So again, just flour up the top dough here. And inside here, by the way, I have a combination of flour and semolina flour, 50-50. Brush that and just kind of roll it up. Real simple, right? Again, I'm crushing the air bubbles now because I want a thin crust. And when it gets to be about 10 inches, make sure it's not sticking, right? Boom. It's getting there. I'm putting a little elbow into this, some weight into it, the rolling here. Beautiful. And again, each time I pick it up, I'm kind of just making sure it's not sticking, right? Boom. And now I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna pause because it's time to pause. I want to just tell you what behind the scenes, I've also got my oven preheating at 450 degrees. I have a baking steel on my top and middle bottom rack. And I do 450 because when I switch my oven to broil before I launch, I find that the broiler kicks in a lot faster than if I preheated it at 500. These ovens are now intelligent, so they tend to have a mind of their own. If it gets too hot, it won't turn the broiler on. So what I do is I trick it, I keep it at 450, and then when I want to use the broiler, almost instantaneously it goes on. That makes sense? So here's my dough, right? Use it by hand a little bit. Isn't that awesome? That cool? And someone asked, hey, what happens? In fact, let's get a hole. Let's do it. What's this? Poke through. Oh no, throw it away. Nope. Here's a solution. I get a hole in my dough, take a deep breath, and all I'm going to do is just kind of pinch over that hole. I'm going to shrink the dough a little bit, obviously now, because I borrowed some of that material, if you will, and just kind of, you can see here, I kind of seamed it. I don't want holes in my dough because if I have holes in my dough, then that sauce is going to creep through and it's going to get stuck on my peel. So repair your holes first. Oh, let's talk about the peel. Need the wooden peel for the launch. I always dust it with semolina flour, right? And now I just place my dough on top of that, just like this. So now you can see me again. How's that lighting, okay? Cool. So you got my thin crust here. I've got my semolina underneath it. I'm gonna give it a little jiggle. It's sliding like a puck. That's a good sign. I've got some crushed tomatoes with a little bit of sea salt. And these are very coarsely crushed. I'm gonna add a little bit of sauce. I like those chunks. And I bring the sauce all the way to the edge, but not over the edge, just like life. And if I do get some stuck on the, my spatula. It's like that noise, guys. If I get some sauce, say on my peel, you see that right here? I want to just make sure I scrape that up, right? And maybe stick a little bit more flour underneath it. So I know my sauce, my pizza is still going to jiggle. See how it's still sliding? Any sauce, I want to make sure I get off of there because that'll make the dough stick a little bit. So I'm just giving it a little jiggle. You can see it moving. I can stretch it out a little bit more here. Boom. Okay, now let's talk about the cheese, right? I'm going with a little bit of Parm. A little bit of, this is a shredded fontina, right? It's like my go-to combination. And last, I'm going to do some fresh mozzarella. And look at this. I'm on a kick lately of making cubes. You see these little cubes? Almost like sugar cubes. Tiny cubes of mozzarella that I slice that way because I kind of like the way it melts. I think it's cool. What do you think, Chef? Think it's cool? Very cool, you guys. Now, if I want to add some basil to this, I could. I might add the basil at the end, right? I might even sprinkle a little bit of olive oil on top. Boom, right? Just a bit. Now, I'm gonna go to my oven. I'm gonna switch it over to broil. So I switch it to broil, and if I have two different settings, I have a high and a low, I went with high. Give this pizza one last kind of look over here. How's it look to you guys? More cheese, less cheese? What do you think? More? More, always more cheese. All right, we'll go more cheese, more parm, just really load this thing up. More sauce? You're good on that. What do you think, Chef? Good on sauce? All right. So before I go into the oven, I'm giving this one last jiggle, right? And it's jiggling, which is great. So I know I can launch this back of the peel to the back of the steel and just kind of calmly remove it. And I'm gonna launch it in. My broiler is now on. I'm gonna bring the camera over here in a second so you guys can see what I'm doing. I don't know if you can kind of see. Can you see what I'm doing here? A little bit. Oh, that light's a killer, huh? It's big like this. My rack just came out. I'll give you guys a different angle in a second. I'm just gonna kind of push this off. Boom. All right. Go like this. Now you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. These racks are beautiful because they slide out. So I'm just gonna push this back in, and you can see underneath there, my broiler is already on, right? Close my oven up. And then 2 minutes will go by-ish. You may have a timer. You got a timer, Chef? Probably about 2 minutes. And then what we'll do is after 2 minutes, I'm gonna kind of rotate that, probably turn the broiler off. And then just continue to bake for 2 more minutes. And what we'll have is like a 4-minute thin crust pizza. It'll be like incredible, out of this world, so tasty. I can top it at that point with some fresh basil, and I can eat a lot of these pizzas because they're thin crust. So we use 150 grams versus 250 grams, which is pretty significant reduction in the amount of dough that we use. Not really, and the flavor is still going to be amazing, but you get a little bit more. You get a little more stretch. How can I use that in a pun? Stretch your dough. Stretching my dough intake, right? All right, so it's been probably about 1.5 minutes. I'm gonna just pause and just give us a quick look in here. It looks awesome. I'll show you guys another close-up look in a minute too. It probably needs another 90 seconds in there, Chef. I'm not sure how much time that was. And then we'll get, after this is complete, we'll get to some questions. It'll be incredible. We'll eat this together. Is anybody in Grand Rapids, by the way? Anybody? Put your, raise your hand if you're in Michigan. I might need some samplers here with me. The studio's getting closer to being ready for guests. All right, so I'm gonna give us another look now. Boom. Looks really good. Saucy. Can you guys see this? I want you to see what I'm looking at. So I've got, it's getting a little bit of color on top. See that? I'm gonna keep the oven closed. Kind of still see what's going on here. My broiler's still on, right? Just cool. I'm gonna turn the boiler off now though, Chef. So I'm gonna turn this boiler off, guys. Go back to convection. Bake for, now I can go to 500 if I'd like. Yes, doesn't matter. So I turn the boiler off, which should take about 15 seconds. And that's just back on convection bake for the next 90 seconds or so. And then we'll be done. And that pizza will be crispy, delicious. What else is it, Jeff? Saucy, cheesy, amazing. That's a good, yeah. That's a good point. It is underestimated. A lot of people don't make this style because I don't even know why. They're afraid. But the thin crust, I like it really crackery thin. And it's just got so much, that crispness is so flavorful and just awesome. Let's see how we look. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Still needs another couple of seconds. I probably went a little heavy on the cheese. Not a problem, right? And then we're good to go. Are there any questions yet, Chef? You want to get to some of those? Oh, good. Let's get to some questions while this thing's still baking. 100, what was the size of the dough? It was 150 grams, like 145, which rolled it up pretty thin. And that was probably about 10 to 12 inches. You could do that. So someone's asking me, do I like par bake it first? So the answer is no, I do not, generally speaking. If I have a party of 15 kids coming over tonight and I have to make 10 pizzas, I might pre-bake a few of them just to kind of keep myself ahead of the game. But besides speed, I don't really need to pre-bake because I'm using my baking steel, and I find using 2 steels for multiple production is just as efficient. So I don't really need to par bake anything unless that is my strategy, if that makes sense. Yeah, let's check. Let's see what we got here. Boom. Oh yeah, that's great. Let's see. So let's turn this off. It's like, you guys see this? It's thin crust. It's awesome. So underneath, you can see, it's hot, sorry. It's cooked, it's got a little oil split underneath it. It's really beautiful. It's hot, it's amazing. You see it here, Chef? That look great. They look awesome. I've got a little oil coming out from the olive oil, which is really cool, by the way. At this point, I could probably take a little bit of cheese, right? Add a little bit more flavor. I can take some fresh basil if I'd like, boom, right? And just drop this on. And I've got this really beautiful pie. 150 gram dough ball. It's so good looking. It's so pretty. And take pictures of it. I can't wait to eat this. I'll do it after you guys go. But take a picture, right? Use my camera. See this here? Boom. Always take pictures in natural daylight. Isn't that awesome? Can you get a good picture of that, guys? See that? Crispy underneath. It's really pretty. Look at that. Boom. I could probably cook another, maybe. See, here we go. It's so good. Doesn't get old. It's super exciting, exhilarating.